This is the Savvy Investor Podcast. Hey there, Savvy Investors. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Savvy Investor Podcast, where we discuss all things real estate investing, provide you guys with invaluable market insight and expert advice to help support you to live this savvy life. If you can't feel that I'm amped up today, then just wait until today's episode. It's really high energy, high impact on actually one of my favorite topics, which is actually marketing of all things. This is something I got my degree in, and for me, just fascinated about this subject of how we can connect people together, build your brand, and what a concept, grow your business, right? That's what we're all here for, is help support each other grow our business. Now, marketing has changed from the days of old when I used to, do brochures and business cards and newsletters, and that may feel like a little bit from the dinosaur era, but compared to what we have, what is now available to us today using social media. There is still some relevance to some of the old school techniques, but there's so much more powerful strategies today. And the best part, it's free. What a concept, right? The real issue for most real estate investors and agents and mortgage brokers and even entrepreneurs is fear. And it's the fear of being more visible. So really scary stuff. I know. What if people don't necessarily like me? What if I say something really stupid? What if I don't get any likes, or worse, someone says something a little bit bad about me? I can't personally take that. For those truly wanting to grow their businesses, I'm sorry, this is a necessity in this day and age, is building out your kind of marketing plan. And you have to have a marketing strategy, because social media really isn't going anywhere. And if you're looking for more clients or money partners, you're going to need a good marketing plan. So what do we say? What do we do? And more importantly, how do we even get started? So for me, I'm really excited to bring Jas Takhar, who is a very well-known individual in our real estate investing community space. He's a business owner, an investor, a coach, public speaker, and from my perspective, just an amazing marketer. He has a great podcast with a very unique podcast name, the Jas Takhar Podcast. Okay, yes, very unique. So where you will see him shine with his experience, and it comes out firsthand. So make sure you go check out that podcast. We brought Jas on to help kind of share some of his amazing knowledge about how we as real estate investors can get more visible in building our personal or corporate brand, which is a real struggle for people out there because of one keyword again, fear. So in this episode, we discuss on several different things, but some of the main concepts that we're going to be discussing is the importance of building your brand in real estate. If you're not being seen, how are people going to buy what you're selling? Some of the marketing strategies that are working right now, there's this constant evolution in different techniques and marketing trends, and see some of the stuff that used to work in the past is kind of coming back to the forefront as well, which is what some of the things we talk about. What about producing content? It's always challenging, trying to kind of keep up. How do we streamline some of the content so it's not so overwhelming for us real estate investors? I know a lot of people struggle with this, and this is a great segment when we discuss that. Being vulnerable so you can actually be relatable to people. People love when you are relatable by being vulnerable. So sharing the good, the bad will actually grow your business, and being very authentic in your approach. And second, and last but not least, is talking about social media to monetize. And I'm not talking about monetizing like you normally would see on social media, but it's about finding clients and partners and what platforms are best to use as a real estate investor. So this is yet another great episode, and this will help real estate investors, business owners, or anyone that is having a hard time with marketing themselves or their businesses. So there are tons of great tips shared in this episode, and I want to thank Jas so very much for sharing so much of his wisdom with our community. So before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to highlight this episode's sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by our Savvy Investor trusted partner, the Power Team. Do you have your sights on investing in real estate in Atlantic Canada? Look no further than the Power Team, led by founder and seasoned investor, Sean Power. Their team has extensive real estate investing experience and are some of the industry leaders helping countless of clients with both residential and commercial properties. They take a more integral approach with their clients by helping them identify risks and benefits of any property so you can make the most informed decisions about your investment. They're there to help you find the right property to ensure it fits your investment goals. I know this personally, as Sean Power from the Power Team are one of my team members for Atlantic Canada, and their service is second to none. If you would like to learn more or would like to connect with the Power Team, visit their website at powerteam.ca or visit the show notes with the link to their website. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Savvy Investor Podcast. And I've got a very fortunate opportunity here to talk to Mr. Jas Takhar joining us as well. And I'm a big fan, like, honestly. When we kind of started this Savvy Investor Podcast, and we're like, who do we want to emulate? Who do we want to kind of be like? And this is one of the guys. This is him, right? We see a lot of the stuff, the content this guy is putting out, I know I'm plugging him a little bit too early, but that's okay. Like, honestly, big fan. Jas, I honestly, I can't thank you enough for being part of this. And today's discussion is going to be very great for a lot of our real estate investors that are interested in scaling their real estate investing business. I don't know if that's you guys or not, but let's talk about it. So, Jas, thanks again for doing this. Really appreciate you having you on here today.
Man, I appreciate it, buddy. I mean, your viewers can't see it. So for the guys and gals that are taking their dog for a walk and driving in the car right now, I'm blushing. So I appreciate the kind words. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. When I got started with this journey about 5 years ago, it was really in the hopes of just my clients watching and listening to my podcast, just so I can kind of help them navigate and declutter the rhetoric and information and data that was being put out there by mainstream media. Not that mainstream media was doing, a complete hack job with it, but I thought I had the opportunity to hopefully help my viewers and listeners. And I never really thought that it was going to get to the amount of people that it's got to now. And then let alone, I never envisioned and dreamt of the fact that someone would say that I was an inspiration for them to get started. So you're really making the kid from Rexdale, which is it's in the northern part of Toronto. You're making that kid really happy, man. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the big thing. Jas has inspired a lot of people. On the topic that we're going to be talking about is called building your brand. And for a lot of people, this is a very nerve-wracking situation for them. Is they've grown and scaled their businesses to a specific level, but they're just like, oh wait, I got to do this social media thing. What? I got to be out there. I got to take pictures. I mean, Mike, you want me to do a video on what? You actually want me to do that? And that's the truth.
And Mike, sorry to cut you off, brother, but just like I felt it there for a second, man. Like, look, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And so it's just that you got to have to look at the alternative, right? Meaning that if you don't, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. That's one. And it's not always about money, but you're also leaving a lot of freedom on the table.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Totally.
I don't think anybody who's watching or listening should be like, oh my God, I have to do this. From my perspective, you get the opportunity to do this because
for sure.
Because there is no easier way in 2024 and beyond now to get people's awareness other than being on 7 to 8 different platforms.
I agree.
It just doesn't exist.
100%.
It would take you forever to door knock people. It would take you forever to it would take you a lot of money to send out flyers. Like I'm a real estate agent by trade. I got a team of a little over 50 agents, and I tell them all the time that without the awareness of a person that has a pulse, and the province that I'm in, which is Ontario, they need to be north of 18 years old. Without the awareness of that person, you don't got a shot to get their business. Now, as a real estate investor, which you kind of mentioned to me for 3 seconds off air, is that at a time you're going to hit a roadblock. You're going to hit an obstacle, which is generally financing. Like the bank's not going to lend you unlimited money for unlimited properties. Maybe you went to your families and friends and did the joint ventures. How do you get to that next level? Well, you get to that next level by becoming the authority in what you do. And the easiest way to do that is through social media.
Agreed. 100%. And you know what? You've been doing this a long time. So have I. It's been, for myself 20 years ago, the good old, like this social media thing for me, like I joke around, I'm the old guy trying to figure out this whole thing, right? But man, was it so much harder back then? I don't think people realize how easy it is right now. Well, how much easier it is than it was way back then to get visible out there. And that's the truth is, for me, it was exactly like you said. And for a lot of people, this is probably going to resonate with you. You buy your first 2 or 3 properties and you may be connected with your friends and family. And now that's over. That's done. You've tapped out. And it's exactly like you reference is I've run out of money. Banks are not financing me anymore because I'm capped out. The bank said you're done. Okay, that's fine. But do you want to stop what you're doing or do you want to continue to scale, which is the next evolution of what you're needing to do? And now it's just like, okay, I've got to create this kind of business thing. Now, what are the next steps? And I think that's exactly what you were saying, right? Right?
You got to get into the world of marketing. In fact, I wouldn't even think of this from a sales perspective. They're different to me, right? Like
Yeah,
sales is more one-on-one combat, right? Like
exactly.
you make a phone call to somebody, you have a consultation with them, and I'm all about sales. Like I love sales. It's what I've been doing for north of 30 years. But I think the place that the investors need to get into now, and there's probably some real estate professionals that have snuck into your world as well. So I say to them as well
Oh, yeah.
that you got to now get into the world of marketing where you start to attract your tribe. Talking about like, yes, social media is one of the easiest ways to do that, but you also want to make sure that you're self-aware enough after trying all the mediums, and I'm going to go into
Mm.
this, after trying all the mediums, deciding which one feels best for you.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good.
those mediums being like we as humans, we generally we generally take in information one of 3 ways. It's through video, i.e., if you're watching us right now, or it would be audio, the massive attention to the world of podcasts. It's a podcast is essentially just an on-demand radio, what
Yep.
we know as like radio stations. Okay,
Yep.
and then the third way would be through the written word. And a lot of people would be like,
Mm.
well, like, who reads hard books? I mean, yeah, I mean, there's like billions upon billions of dollars of books sold every single year. Now, I'm not telling you to write a book necessarily, but you should look into the world of blogging because
Yep.
there's a website that is known as medium.com, and there's a little over 150 million, I'll say that again, over 150 million users a month that go on that website. So long form content from a written perspective is still in very high demand. Now, as someone who's looking for someone's awareness, another person's awareness, I would recommend doing all 3. It's what I
Mm.
do. I do video, I strip out the audio, put that on podcast platforms. I take the audio, transcribe it into the written word, and nowadays using AI like ChatGPT, I take my transcription of words that I said or my guest said, and we transcribe, we create a blog for medium.com. What that allows
Brilliant.
people to do is decide how they want to consume you. Because some
Yeah.
people might look at me and be like, damn, he's really good looking. Others might say, ugh, there's something weird about this guy. He waves his hands a lot. It looks like he's on some drugs, maybe. He brings a lot of energy. I can't consume him through video. Some might say, you know what? From an audio perspective, I kind of like his voice. It's kind of sexy and sultry. The others might say, ugh, there's something about the ums and ahs he uses. But then when they read a blog of mine, they might, you know what? Okay, that resonates with me. Hence why you want to use kind of the guerrilla marketing affair, a
Mm.
warfare approach, which is hit them high, low, and from every aspect. So then the viewer can consume how they want to actually take in your content.
Yeah. Yeah. So good on all points. And it's something that we're doing within our own business as well. It's actually kind of funny. My wife actually was telling me, it's like, who reads blogs anymore when we actually launched our blog many times ago? And you know what? She said that, and I could have just, and no offense to my wife, I love my wife, but truthfully, she said that I could have just said, okay, nobody reads blogs. And then we did it anyway, just as a reference point. Holy crap. I can't believe the amount of readership and engagement. And more importantly, is the response and communication that we got after the fact and say, thanks for doing that. It was very informative stuff to help support them. And I think that's really key. So don't discount a lot of these different mediums that maybe feel like that's old school. It's not. It's still, it's exactly like you said, that people just do things differently and consume it differently. Right. So,
Now, taking that blog into consideration, let's say you don't even put it on the website of medium.com. What you can do is put it into an email that you send out, let's just for
exactly.
giggles say every other week, right?
Yeah.
Because as a marketer, something that works still till this day is sending out emails. Like
Mhm.
email open rates are not the same as they were 15 to 20
Yeah,
years ago, but
agreed.
people still open up emails as a
Oh, yeah,
real
yeah.
estate investor. If you're not building a email list of possible people that you can do joint ventures with, you're again leaving a lot of money and freedom out like on the table. And so imagine if you just took some of that transcription, didn't put out a blog, but now you have emails that you can send out to that email list. Because people always say to me like, okay, Jas, I get I get it. I need an email list. But what the heck am I going to write? Well, how about if you could just do one thing, i.e., what we're doing right now is call it a 30-minute conversation. We go for
Mhm.
30 minutes and we check off on all the mediums because we got the video now. You can take out the audio and you
Yeah.
can transcribe it and use it as a blog/email.
Yeah, exactly. All of those things. Really, really great. Now, for a lot of people, you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that's a lot to absorb. It is. But you know what? This is it. We're just trying to open your eyes to the different opportunities that are available to you to become more visible in building your brand. And again, when you're listening to what Jas is referencing, there's a lot of experience, lots of knowledge there for multitude of different reasons why we brought him onto the show. But this is some of the things, if you are wanting to scale and grow, it's something that you need to absorb and understand. So if you want to grow, these are just some tips. So here's kind of a question for you, Jas, is, building your brand, the importance of, should it be your personal brand, business brand? And secondly, for people that are just beginning their journey, maybe highlight some of the importance of building either their personal or business brand, or is it a combination of both? What's been your experience and what advice are you giving to people these days?
Yeah. So I kind of have the experience with building both as well as what I'm telling people right now. And so I have obviously my personal brand, which is me, Jas Takhar. And then I have two organizations. I have a real estate company, which is where my 50 agents are, and we help buyers, sellers, and investors invest into the Greater Toronto Area, which is known as REC Canada. That's my
Yeah.
company brand. I also have a third brand, which is another company brand, which is my coaching company for real estate professionals, From the Ground Up Academy. Now, here's why I told you that those weren't shameless plugs. By the way, it was really for so everyone can understand the way that I built it. My two company brands, they need to speak a specific way. Why?
Hmm.
Because, well, I have business partners, for example, in both of my companies. And so if I had certain political views or I wanted to speak a certain way, that might not jive with my business partners. And so we
Right.
sat down in our meetings and said, okay, what do our company stand for? So then the company now speaks on social media. That could include some of my staff, my team members. It can include real stories of clients, coaching clients, as well as my real estate clients. But now when it comes to my personal brand, no one's allowed to tell me what I'm allowed to speak about. I could throw F-bombs if I want to. I could do it in a hoodie. I could do it in a t-shirt. I could do it whatever which way I want to. And it's actually been the one that connects with people more. Why? Because
Exactly.
humans connect with other humans, not necessarily companies. And so if someone's listening right now and they're juggling between the two, or they're over, what's really happening is that they're generally overthinking so they don't have to make a decision. I'm making it for you. Go all in on your personal brand, your name. Why? Because chances are you're not going to change your name. Here's the other thing, and this is the experience that I had. You can change what you speak about because you as
Hmm.
a human will evolve over time, your likes and dislikes, and that's okay. When a company changes their messaging too much, it showcases to the public that maybe their vision is not right. Maybe they don't got all their ducks in order. When a
Yeah.
person changes, it's generally okay. We're all okay with that. Like 42-year-old Jas today is not the same as 22-year-old. I still have some vodka and tequila, but maybe it's a little bit more, and it's in a little bit more classy cup now. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
you change and you evolve. And so as someone who has done both, I would highly recommend sticking with a personal brand because again, you can speak about whatever you want, but most importantly, other humans are going to connect with you a lot easier than they are with a company brand, and that's that's easily like we see it all the time, very easy, because of the fact that
Yeah.
when you're on social media, you generally scroll past anything that's from a company
Oh
because you
yeah.
feel like it's going to be an ad. It's like the old school commercials, right? Where when you are putting out a video or a piece of audio or a written blog from your personal perspective or on your personal page, you have a higher probability of people connecting. Not all the time, but you have a higher probability of someone connecting with you. The reason why you want to do it, point blank, is that you cannot get someone's business without getting their awareness first. I know I've
Agreed.
said it before in this episode, but that's like the the juice of the conversation. That's the
Yeah.
punchline. You
Yeah.
cannot get anyone's business without getting their awareness first. And we now, as humans, go on these 7 to 8 platforms more than we actually check emails, more than we go on live TV, more than
So
like
true.
even unfortunately, not only the passenger in the car, but the driver in the car is looking at their phones. They're not necessarily looking at the billboards that are
Yeah.
on the highways and on the streets, right? And so why not be where the party is at? Like if you are as a real estate investor, there's a massive meetup happening, on Thursday at 6 p.m. at a hotel. It's probably a good idea that you go there because you're gonna meet some other successful investors. They're gonna tell you their failures and successes. You're gonna network with people. Well, not being on social media today is like not going to that party. It makes no sense. People
I
are
agree.
consuming content. Go where people are consuming content.
Yeah, agreed. 100% on all points that you've just referenced. And I always use the analogy. It's like watching a TV show. You're going to be watching it anyway. You're watching a TV. Sorry, you're watching a TV. But as soon as you turn to a channel and there's just a bunch of fuzz and static, you're going to turn the channel. So, that's your channel. So that's how you're going to become a lot more visible. But you need to provide some information to let people know who you are, especially in this type of an environment that we're in today. Right. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, they're listening to this and they're signing off and they're like, yeah, I need to be more visible. I need to do this. But here's the thing. I've bought 2 or 3 properties, Jas. That's it. That's all I've got. Right. What am I going to share? Who's going to listen to me? What am I going to share? Because that's always the biggest thing that I talk to a lot of my students. It's just like, okay, I don't know what to say. I'm not Jas. I'm not Mike. I don't know. You guys have more information than I do. Why would they listen to me versus anybody else? So what do you say to people like that they're holding themselves back because they feel like they don't have a story to share because they believe that that's not going to resonate with others to want to follow?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one is to that person, don't discount, especially like with your question, the
Amen.
way that you framed it, like you said, like that person has 2, 3 properties. The amount of stuff that happened during that process of getting those 2 to 3 properties, you probably have enough content, like one piece of content a day for like at least 6 months. Like if you actually really think about 3 properties that you bought, the process that you had to go through, the
Uh-huh.
financing, the inspection, how you raise the capital if you did like joint ventures or raise capital, how you search for those properties. Now you're renting them out if they're income properties. The process of finding a tenant, the what happened on the first month, what accounts did you like? I could go
Yeah.
on and on and on, but that's only with 2 to 3 properties. Now,
Yeah.
let's just say, more importantly, you're not only someone that feels like that they don't have enough to say, but you're also concerned about you doing this on your own. I'm going to give everyone the fix. And the fix is start a show slash podcast, or I'm trying not to even use those words as much now, Mike, because it scares people. Like they
Totally.
think when it's a podcast, shit, I got to do the next Joe Rogan. When they think show, they're like, I got to make this the next Oprah Winfrey show. So I'm just calling it long form content.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to, like, for lack of a better word, dumb it down and scale
Uh-huh.
it down to the 16 year.
Yeah, and we're not calling you dumb. We're not calling you guys dumb. Not at all. Not calling anybody dumb.
Everybody understands. 90% of the words I said today on this episode, I probably can't even spell them. Like, so you don't need to be that smart. Okay. What you need to do is be consistent. So
Mhm.
this is the
Yeah,
fix. The
for sure.
fix is for 30 minutes, what I want you to do is speak with other people. Just have a conversation with, and do this every other week. So let's really, if you were going to eat an elephant, they're my favorite animal. So I'm not into eating elephants. But if you were, it's probably a good idea to do it one bite at a time. So start with every other week. That's 26 conversations that you're going to need to record for 30 minutes. Who can these be with? Well, you could probably start with Mike. You could probably start with the investor that has 8, 9 properties, that has a little bit more stories than you at 2 or 3. You can also start with somebody who's just starting their journey, because there's other people who are starting their journey. They want to see and hear stories of someone else starting in their journey. You can sit down with a mortgage broker. You can sit down with a real estate agent. You can sit down with a real estate lawyer. You can sit down with an accountant. You can sit down with a property manager. You can go to ChatGPT and put this as your prompt. I am a local real estate investor in BC, and I am looking into doing 26 long form pieces of content. Please provide me with 100 topic ideas. I say 100 so you can bring them down to the 26 favorite ones that you like. Okay. From there, what you're going to do is sit down, schedule these 26 episodes out every other week. Okay. And if you look at the conversation that Mike and I have been having, who's really been doing the heavy lifting? No shot at Mike. He's a very good looking guy and a very kind guy. But at the end of the day, the heavy lifting is really coming from me as the guest. Mike has his 5, 6 questions that he's thinking about. They're generally going to revolve around the most open-ended questions that start with what, when, where, how, and why. Because if Mike asks me a question about how did you get started and I answer it with yes or no, a little weird. That doesn't make sense. And so what you're going to do is, you as the guest, I apologize, you as the host, it's one of the easiest jobs. All you have to do as the host is start with those 5 questions that are open-ended. Not that you can't throw in closed-ended questions that someone answers with yes or no, but at least the guest is doing the heavy lifting. And I have news for everyone. Most people have never been asked to be on a podcast. And we are all human. We all want to, we all have a little bit of ego that makes us feel proud when someone asked us to be on their content. And here's the other thing. As the guest, I'm probably going to share the content. Like, I'm going to ask Mike, hey, can I take this content, brother, and share it out? And he's going to say, yeah. Well, what does he get out of that? Well, he gets awareness. My community is going to be like, what the heck is the savvy investor? I need to find out more, right? So you as a host now, you're starting to, what I call, taproot through other people's networks.
Yeah.
I went really quickly there. I know I sounded like I was on some drugs because I came with a lot of energy. But what I want everybody to really get an understanding of is that there's no excuse. We know why you need to do this. I just gave you the easiest way to get started, even as someone who's never done a piece of video. Because when you're having a conversation with someone else, as I mentioned, the guest is doing the heavy lifting, but the camera's not on you as much. Because as someone who's watching right now, they might glimpse over to the host, but they're probably looking at me a little bit more because I'm the one who's doing majority of the talking. And so you also take the pressure off. And one thing I can promise you, as I have, as right now, there's the camera that's on me right now to do this. I have another camera that's capturing content for me, in case Mike and the team don't get their content over to me fast enough. When I got started, I was not as comfortable. But unfortunately, you don't get confidence first and then get to do.
Yeah.
It works backwards. Unfortunately, you do first and then get confidence. Like, I wish I could buy everybody some confidence from Walmart. I would be a multi-trillionaire because I know what's lacking in a lot of humans, and I get it. And I'm not knocking anyone. Unfortunately, it just doesn't exist. But everyone can get confident by doing first. So I now have over 15,000 hours of recorded content of me in the last 6 years. Obviously, I'm a little better than you, whoever is just getting started right now. It's actually an insult for you to compare yourself to me, an insult to me, but also it's an insult to yourself. It's unfair. You don't have the experience yet. But if you don't get started, nothing's going to change. And I also worried about what other people thought of me all the time, all the time. You know, I mentioned that I can't spell stuff. I sometimes don't use all the words in the right context. I do come with a lot of energy, and so sometimes my brain is moving faster than my lips, and it comes out as a stutter. I have a lazy left eye sometimes that the doctors tried to fix when I was a kid, couldn't fix it. And I do a lot of real estate in a t-shirt and a hoodie. And and I could go on and on and on. At the end of the day, unless you're thinking about the way that you look and the way that you look the way that you look and you sound the way that you sound.
Be
Period.
you.
Get over it.
Yeah.
Nobody's actually really thinking about you as much as you think that they're thinking about you. I'm sorry to
Yeah.
break it to everybody. You're not that important. Neither
Yeah.
am I. Everybody has their own thing in their life, right? Like we're all worried about our own selves. And so we're not
Yeah.
really thinking about the person. Like everybody who's watching or listening to this, you're making your quick snap judgment of, yeah, I really like Jas. I don't like him. And then you're going to move
Mhm.
on. And so the people that did like me, hopefully they dive into my content more. We get connected because your vibe will always attract your tribe. Your vibe will always attract your tribe. Your job is to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Your job is to
I
put yourself out there as much as you possibly can, because the more times you put yourself out there, the faster the feedback loop gets started, and then people will decide if they like you or they don't like you. And if they do, hopefully they'll do business with you. Some will, some won't. So what? Some will, some won't. So what? You can't change that. But if you never put yourself out there, you'll never have a shot.
Man, there is so much to unpack here. I'm sure our listeners and the people who are watching this video, they're going to have to go back a few because there's like so many different nuggets that just got dropped, guys. Like there's just like, again, chat GPT, again, there's so much information. Chat GPT is just one of those golden nuggets, guys, for everybody should take advantage of this. But I think you just nailed one thing is there's a lot of chat GPT content out there. Make it your own. Like take the nuggets out of that stuff. And please, like it's to structure what is resonating with you and then make it your own voice. It's just a tool. But in this day and age, it's being utilized by everybody constantly. So take advantage of that stuff. It's just amazing, right? So, again, lots to unpack, Jas, there. But the one thing I think for everybody is you highlighted sharing and talking and sharing experiences. And I think one of the things I just want to add this in too, is it's not always about the success stories. In fact, it's the non-success stories that resonate more with people too, because you're making people real. I always joke around with the term Lamborghini guy. Is it, that's that individual that has got, driving around this Lamborghini, it's everything sunshine and roses. But honestly, the real great stuff that people really want to pay attention to is the lessons lessons learned from those 2 or 3 deals. What didn't go well and what were some of the things you would do better at next time, because those types of experiences make you a real person, to be honest. And then more importantly, again, it's making those connections, making that relatability, right? So
And with real estate investors, because I'm blessed enough to be part of groups from a investing perspective, like Savvy
yeah,
Investors and other investment groups, but then I'm also part of groups in the real estate agent, realtor professional
sure.
kind of industry as well. And unfortunately, on the real estate professional side of things, most people in that industry hold the good stuff very, very close to their chest. Like like that industry is known for having the doors, like they're like the top producers having their doors closed and not
Right.
wanting to tell people and other agents, not everybody, like don't get me wrong, not everybody, but a lot, right? Like there's just like, I can't tell Joe my secrets because then he's gonna take it, right? It's the old scarcity mentality. I just live in abundance mentality. Like there's enough for all of us to go around.
Yeah,
The
there
pie's
is.
big enough, and trust me, from the look of it, like I like pies, you can tell. And if we run out, we'll bake more. That's kind of my mentality in life. But from the investing world, like investors, this is where I was going with this. Investors are the ones that share the most. I don't know what it is. I think I've maybe nailed it to the fact that we all, as a real estate investor, remember our first property and how hard it was. And so for some reason, like, we just don't want to see someone else hit their head against the wall. Like, you probably notice it all the time. Your community is like that, in fact.
Always.
Like,
Yep.
we always share our failures. Like, don't go down that path. Don't work with that broker. Don't do that. You know, like, because you really, you don't want them to hit their head against the wall. You spoke about authenticity and through ChatGPT, and you know what, one thing I get asked a lot about is like, how do I become more authentic? Like, I really want to make sure it's me. I'm like, bro, all you got to do is open your mouth and turn on the camera. Like, nobody looks like you, nobody sounds like you know. And so yeah, you don't want to take ChatGPT and regurgitate it or plagiarize it, you know what I mean, and just copy it. But there's nothing wrong with taking ideas. In fact, I use ChatGPT as really a thinking partner, right?
It is.
And like, I'm going to be doing like, I do a podcast myself every single Friday, and every topic I have, I put it into ChatGPT. I'm like, this is going to be the topic that I'm going to be talking about. Just give me like 6-7 points. I know I'm going to tell the storytelling around the 3 points that I choose out of the 6-7 that it gives me, right? So the stories that you're able to bring out of your guests, as well as your own personal journey, is what is unique and authentic. So I think people, I can't stress enough the importance of just getting started, because it really starts the feedback loop of not only what people will tell you is working or not, or you'll find out yourself. It's most importantly, it's what you'll start to decide what you like and what you don't like.
Again, lots to unpack. Is so much great information there. Like, and to kind of go into there about just getting started. That's actually the biggest thing for most people is, okay, not only are they concerned that they don't feel like they're going to give their community value. People are just like, I don't know what they're, but it's the true keyword fear. Like, it's real. Like, these people are, everybody, including myself, many years ago, man, I was scared to death, like, to be doing this, like, many years, give me a break, but scared to death to actually say, so Jas, you're telling me to stick the camera in front of my face and talk about something and then post this out on the world. Like, I know this. And again, why we brought you in is he, as you guys can tell, just a natural, like, just truly a natural, but it was years and years of experience and knowledge. And I know this is something you work with other agents and other industry professionals as well, as how do you overcome that true fear other than just getting started? Is there like a step-by-step process? Is there something that you're suggesting or recommending just to how to even begin?
So I don't think there's a step-by-step process. I think what it is now that I'm suggesting to people, and what I'm actually seeing is working for other people. And if I look back in it, and when I was going through it, I didn't, I couldn't really see the forest for the trees, so to speak, right? And hindsight's always 20/20. And what that is get somebody you're accountable to. That's it. Like, hang around people that are doing what you want to do, because they're not going to allow you in their group. And I'm doing air quotes for somebody who's taking their dog for a walk right now, like, and listening, that if you're hanging around 5 people who are doing things at a very high level, and if you're not living up to that expectation, well, they're just not going to want you around, because you're bringing down their results and you're bringing them down. So, like, get around a group of people that are doing what you want to do. And if you can't do that from a financial perspective, maybe for some reason like that group doesn't exist, at least find one person that you can be accountable to. Because some of us, and a lot of us, in fact, it's easier for us to be accountable to someone else than actually be accountable to yourself. Right? It's why good parents are good parents. They know they're accountable to their kids growing up and being good in society and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, why partnerships in business work really well. And I know some of them don't, but a lot of them do as well, because you're accountable to someone else. And so what I would recommend is, like, with your group, I think you should have some type of accountability structure that keeps people accountable in doing this once every other week. Like, at the start with once a month. Look, I want you to be at once every other week. I do once a week, so you can get a quick understanding of what I think if you can't do it once a month. It takes time, yes, but what are you really doing with your time? I have 5 videographers and editors that are full-time, like right behind this wall right now. If I sent one of them to your homes and recorded you for the last week, like, were you working all the time? Like, how much of the time were you actually working? Let me rephrase it, right? And so I understand you don't have the time. You got to create time for this. But start with once a month. Be accountable to someone else, because it gets easier because you have someone else to report to. I wish there was a step-by-step, like read this book and then do this. Doesn't work, right? It's why 90% of the books that get bought, people don't get past the first chapter.
Oh, so true. So good. So true. Yeah.
Not something that's in a book, right? Like you can be amazing at reading a book on how to do sit-ups, but if you never do them, right? And so I think the answer to your question, brother, it really is get around somebody else, because that's what happened with me. I didn't have to get around people that were doing it, because when I started this in my province, nobody had cameras on them. Like, they thought I was the most narcissistic, weird person on earth because I had someone following me around with a camera. But I knew, I was like, no, no, no. I'm going to document what I'm doing. I'm going to use it in the future, but I'm also going to showcase some of the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis. And so now it's a lot more easier to find groups, but I was accountable to my team. I knew that if I wasn't able to at least get started and figure out how we were going to get to our clients, then I was going to be out of business. Because I just had one of my partners tragically pass away 6 years ago.
Oh,
He was the face of the company, and so when he passed away, this left this gaping hole in our business, and so I had no choice. I don't want anybody to have to go through a tragedy to get started on
yeah.
doing video, because looking back, it was quite silly me thinking, oh my God, I can't get started with video because I'm worried about what people are going to think about me. It's not true. Nobody's
Yeah.
thinking about you really that long.
Yeah. It's funny you said that, actually, because you know what? I talk to a lot of real estate investors, and they start their kind of their video journey. Like, videos, again, you're being vulnerable, very vulnerable out there. It's scary. It can feel scary because you're sharing, but then there's also this perception out there from some people. They're just like, well, if I'm going to be sharing my journey about, I just bought my multifamily property or my single family, it feels like I'm kind of gloating to my community and to family. And there's just this perception, and they're just like, I don't know if I really want to do that. People are going to think weird of me. And then they're just like, but again, I find that to be like another excuse. And it's not to say that's not valid, but it is just another way to start to not do it. You know what I mean?
What? And people are going to think you're weird.
Yeah, it's true. Who cares? Yeah, it's true.
Oh my God, there goes Laura again, just showing off on all her properties that she bought. But it also, what's your intent?
Mm.
If you start the video and say, you're fucking poor, and sorry for the F bomb, but it was going to come out at some point with me. You're poor, and look at me, how rich I am, and I got 67 properties because I'm the guy. Yeah, that might come off weird, and you probably are going to turn off a lot of people. But if you start off that video by saying, what I'm noticing with some of the properties that I've purchased is X, Y, and Z, it comes off differently because you're actually coming off as that you're trying to help someone. Now, that same second example that I use, there will be people like, ooh, look how he kind of threw in that he has a few properties. He's good. He's kind of, he's sneaky in the way that he's able to do it. Majority of people, though, are just going to hear that video as a story of a success or a mistake, especially if it was, hey, like, what I'm noticing is I didn't do as much due diligence as I should have with those tenants. Make sure that when you're going to rent out a property, yes, the tenant's going to give you the XYZ paperwork, but also go hop over to their social media just to see, kind of get a better idea about them. Because maybe on the rental application, they put, they don't have pets, but on their social media, every other friggin' picture is with them and their dog. Like, like you can maybe, not that there's anything wrong with having dogs and with tenants, but I'm saying you caught them in probably a lie. You know, like, so you're teaching people through your own stories. You're going to turn people on, you're going to turn people off. That's why I always stick to the mantra of some will, some won't, so what? Because my job is not to attract everyone. That would be naive for me to think that I'm going to get everyone. Even if I were to, I wouldn't know how to handle all that. It would be too many, too much, too quickly. But my job is to put it out, and put it out meaning the content, put out my vibe, and allow people to make their own decision if they want to connect with me or not.
I love that. So such great stuff. Because again, even like a negative comment of some sort, it's just it can almost be like a knife in the chest, right? You're like, oh my God, somebody said something bad. I'm done. I'm not gonna do it anymore, right? Just because, but again, you just don't necessarily know how many people you resonate with that really are seeing the value. I wanted to ask you this one question too, is how to, and you were bringing this up a little bit, is how do we actually convert this into growth of a business? Is it, we're giving, we're sharing, we're communicating, but at the same time, it's kind of a fine line in regards to being pitchy, if you know what I'm saying. It's just like, you know what? I don't want to sound like this, no offense to our used car salesman, but it's just like a used car salesman where I'm kind of like, hey, I've got an investment opportunity, and it's every week it's an investment opportunity. We talked earlier about the message, but how do we share, and how does that translate to business? You've been doing this a long, long time, and I know that you've got lots of wisdom there. And I know this is I'm not going to be here for 3 hours on this podcast, but like we share some kind of how you've been able to do that as part of your evolution, because some people may be feeling stuck right now in regards to sharing, right?
And if I hear your question properly, I think I'm getting like, how do you actually monetize it? How does it make
Yes. How
money?
does that convert? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So here's what I would recommend. When you put out content, especially if we go down the route of every other week, like we were suggesting, right? And just let me quickly go back to that, because when you do something every other week from a long form perspective, I did talk about the long form video, the ripping out of the audio, and then the transcribing. What also happens when you do that is that you can take out some clips. And now more than ever, you're going to use AI, because for like $150 a year, it will automatically clip out 1 minute or less videos of what it deemed as being valuable. How this all happens, it's way above my pay grade. Okay. Like the AI stuff is mind blowing. But out of 30 minutes, they'll give you like 12 clips. Those clips you're going to put out on social media. Okay. So you're also going to get your clips put out on shorter form content. So you're giving people the short form and the long form. What happens when you do that consistently, and the way it gets monetized and how you build a business from it, is people just see you all the time, that they do what's known as a digital deep dive. And what that is, they go to your profile and say, what is it? Like, what does this guy or this gal actually do? And they look and they see in the bio, real estate investor, looking for other investors, looking for joint venture partners. Email here. What happens is that when you give and give and give and give, giving of information or entertainment, people automatically start to reach out to you because they see you as the authority.
Yeah.
And so the way it gets monetized is by people reaching out and saying like, hey, can you tell me more about the investing aspect of what you like what you did? They might not even say what you do yet. And that's when you get on a one-on-one conversation. Now that's where it goes from marketing to sales. And so I'll let the cat out of the bag for everyone. Here's my overall thesis on marketing and sales. You give in public, and then you ask in private.
Ooh,
what does that mean? Good. On social media, on podcasts, on long form, from stage, if you're gonna, because you will start to get asked to be on stage, guys and gals. You're talking to the guy that couldn't put a sentence together on video, and I get paid to be on stage now. Like, it's mind-boggling that they want to hear me speak on stage. Okay. mind-boggling to me, okay, and to my wife for sure. That when I'm on those stages, I'm on a podcast, I'm on social media. Like if you go to my Instagram profile right now, for anybody who's watching or listening, I very rarely say call me. In fact, one out of maybe 25 videos, I might say, for more information, give me a shout. One out of every 25, 30 videos. But then when they DM me, email me, private message me, call my number, that's when I ask for something that I might be selling. I might say, if it's a real estate client, because they like my tips and stories around investing into real estate, I might say, hey, by the way, I also have an opportunity right now in Toronto. Did you want me to send you the information? No? Awesome. Let's stay in touch. If it's a real estate agent, they say, well, Jas, man, all these things that like, teaching me how to be a better salesperson and being a better real estate professional. I'm like, come to one of my events. They're free. They come to an event. And then if I'm in a one-on-one talk with them, I let them know about my program. And then if they decide they want to do it, great. If not, that's okay as well.
That's
Keep
fine too.
following me, because maybe I'll get you in 6 months from now or 6 years from now. So it really is give in public, ask in private.
I love that. And it's in the same beliefs that I follow too. It's just like for me, I have a couple sayings is sell by not selling. And that's exactly what it is you just don't need to sell. Like I don't need to pitch. I actually never pitch any of my deals ever. I never need to. And then the second part to that is by giving and giving and giving and giving, it's exactly like you said. I'm not necessarily targeting the person that's commenting and liking every single one of my posts. I actually call them the invisible investor. That's my what I say. And it's the guys that are just silent follow they're just sitting they're creepers. No offense to my creepers. They're just creepers. They're watching and watching and watching, and then all of a sudden I get a DM. I've been following you for 3 years. I've got 200 grand. I would love to invest with you. I haven't pitched a deal. I haven't said anything, but that's it, right? So, real last question I've got for you, and I always ask this of my guests, Jas, is final words of wisdom. You've got a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and like I said, we can unpack this for hours and hours and hours and hours of content. But final words of wisdom for those that are wanting to scale, wanting to overcome this fear of being visible. Um, Final, just last bits of advice that you can give them.
Look, I think it's pasted all over my office. It's a sign that says "Ready, Fire, Aim," and I know that's a brain, what, for most people, because we were raised with ready, aim, fire, or
Yeah,
look before you leap. Don't pull the trigger until you got everything lined up, and then
so good.
actually pull the trigger. The problem with that is that most people sit in paralysis by analysis. And so I live by ready, fire, aim, which is pull the trigger as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and then adjust along the way. Because when you start pulling the trigger very quickly, you'll come to realize if you're too far left, too far right, above the target, or below the target. But you'll never know until you actually pull the trigger. So we can talk about this for hours upon hours, but it does nobody any good unless you actually take the action, because I can't stress enough how much it starts the feedback loop when you actually get started.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Um, Great information. Lots to unpack. Thank you so much for doing this. If people want to follow you, Jas, where's the best place to connect with you, learn more
I'm
about
not
you?
hard to find, man. Just
No,
Google
you're
me.
not.
Google my first name, last name. I'm not hard to find. I'm all over the place. You decide as a viewer or listener how you want to consume me: video, audio, or the written word.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll put some of the information in the show notes below. Guys, Jas, thanks again for doing this. Really, really appreciate. Thanks for everybody that for listening and watching.
I hope I brought some value to the conversation. Thank you so much.
You did. The views and advice expressed on this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the opinions or beliefs of the podcast host, its producers, or affiliated parties. All content shared is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional, financial, legal, or investment advice. Listeners and viewers are strongly encouraged to conduct their own research and consult with qualified professionals such as financial advisors, lawyers, and accountants before making any financial decisions or investments based on the information provided in this podcast or any related content. The podcast host and producers disclaim any responsibility for any actions taken by listeners as a result of information presented in this episode. Viewer and listener discretion is advised.